I remember every second of that night like it was etched into my bones. It was supposed to be a simple outing, a rare chance for Mason to feel normal, to escape the four walls of our quiet home that had become his prison since the accident that left him in that wheelchair. He was my boy, my fighter, born with a condition that made his legs unreliable, but his spirit unbreakable. At 18, he still lit up at the thought of music, crowds, just being out in the world without pitying stares. Harper, had always been his shield. As a single mom and a retired Marine combat instructor, I'd trained hundreds of recruits to push through pain, to stand tall when the world tried to knock them down. But nothing prepared me for this. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. We'd chosen the club on the edge of town, a place called Pulse. Nothing fancy, just enough thump to make Mason smile. I'd scouted it weeks before, talked to the staff about accessibility, made sure there was a ramp or an elevator. "It's all good," the manager had said over the phone, his voice slick with that fake reassurance. I believed him. Why wouldn't I? Trust like that comes from years of holding things together for your kid. Mason wheeled ahead of me into the dim entrance, his eyes wide with excitement. The air hit us thick, smoke, sweat, the kind of energy that makes your skin buzz. I stayed close, my hand on the back of his chair, scanning the room like I always did. Old habits from the Corps die hard. You learn to spot threats in a crowd, to read the room before it reads you. The music pounded, bodies swayed, and for a moment, I let myself relax. Mason turned to me, grinning. "Mom, this is awesome. Thanks for bringing me." I squeezed his shoulder. "Anything for you, kid. Just stick close." We found a spot near the bar, away from the crush. He sipped a soda, tapping his fingers to the beat, while I nursed a water, keeping watch. That's when it happened. The shift in the air, like a storm rolling in unannounced. It started with a group of rowdy guys at the edge of the dance floor. Loud laughs, spilled drinks, the usual chaos. One of them bumped into a waitress, and she called over security. That's when I saw him, the bouncer, built like a wall, with a shaved head and eyes that screamed trouble. His name tag read Blake, but he didn't look like the type who cared about names. He barreled through the crowd, shoving people aside without a second thought. The guys scattered, but not before one of them, drunk and stupid, yelled back. Mason, caught in the spillover, had wheeled a little too close to the action. His chair clipped the edge of a table, and a glass tipped over, shattering near Blake's feet. It was nothing, an accident in the madness. But Blake whirled around, his face twisting into something ugly. "You? Get out of here, freak," he snarled, his voice cutting through the music like a blade. I stepped forward, heart racing. "Hey, easy. It was an accident. We're leaving if that's what you want." But Mason, bless him, tried to apologize. "Sorry, man. I didn't mean." Before I could pull him back, Blake lunged. He grabbed the handles of Mason's wheelchair, yanking it like it weighed nothing. Mason's face went pale, his hands gripping the arms tight. "Wait, stop." Time slowed. I reached out, but Blake was faster, stronger in that brutal way. With a grunt, he lifted the chair and all, and hurled it toward the back stairwell, the one marked staff only. Mason tumbled out midair, his body hitting the steps first, then rolling down in a sickening series of thuds. The wheelchair clattered behind him, metal screeching against concrete. His cry, sharp, broken, pierced me deeper than any battlefield wound. The crowd gasped, a few phones came out, but no one moved. Blake stood there, chest heaving, wiping his hands like he'd just swatted a fly. "Problem solved," he muttered, turning back to the door as if nothing had happened. I sprinted down the stairs, knees hitting the ground beside Mason. He was crumpled at the bottom, one leg twisted wrong, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. "Mom, it hurts," he whispered, his voice small, eyes searching mine for reassurance I didn't have. "Sure, I'm here. Hold on." I cradled his head, pressing my jacket to the wound, yelling for help. Up top, the manager appeared, fidgety, avoiding my eyes. "Ma'am, we need to call an ambulance." But he shouldn't have been in the way. In the way? My boy, who just wanted a night out. Rage boiled under my skin, but I swallowed it, focusing on Mason. Sirens wailed in the distance soon enough, paramedics swarming, loading him onto a stretcher. As they wheeled him out, I caught Blake's gaze across the room. He smirked, like this was just another Tuesday. That's when it hit me. The betrayal wasn't just from him. The whole place, the staff turning away, the crowd filming instead of helping. It was a system built on silence, on pretending the vulnerable didn't matter. And me? I let my guard down. But not anymore. In the ambulance, Mason gripped my hand. "Why'd he do that, Mom?" "What did I do?" I had no words, just tears I blinked back. As a Marine, I'd faced enemies overseas, trained to endure the unimaginable. But this was personal war, fought in hospitals and courtrooms, not foxholes. The doctors at the ER confirmed fractures, possible nerve damage worsening his condition. "He's stable," they said, "but recovery will be tough." Hours blurred into dawn. I sat by his bed, watching him sleep, my mind racing. Who was Blake really? Why no immediate arrest? Whispers from a nurse hinted at club connections, powerful friends who swept things under the rug. Betrayal layered on betrayal. My family, my ex, Victor, who'd left years ago citing the stress of Mason's needs, would hear about this soon. Would he even care? As the sun rose, I made a silent vow. This wasn't ending with apologies or payouts. I'd use every skill from my Marine days, discipline, strategy, unyielding focus, to uncover the truth. But first, I needed answers. And the first one staring me in the face. Did anyone in that club really see what happened? Or were they all too afraid to speak? The fight was just beginning. Sitting there in that sterile hospital room, the beeps of machines mocking the silence, I couldn't shake the image of Mason tumbling down those stairs. His small frame, so fragile against the concrete, it replayed in my mind like a nightmare on loop. The doctors had come and gone, rattling off terms like compound fracture and aggravated nerve compression. But all I heard was how much longer he'd be confined, how much more pain he'd endure. Mason stirred in his sleep, murmuring something about the music, and I gripped the bed rail until my knuckles turned white. This wasn't just an injury. It was a violation, a crack in the foundation I'd built for us after everything else fell apart. Flashback a few years, and you'd see why nights like this hit so hard. Life hadn't always been this guarded. Before Mason's condition worsened, before the endless therapies and the stairs, we were a family, or at least we pretended to be. Victor, my ex, had been the steady one at first. Tall, reliable, with that easy laugh that made everything feel lighter. We met during my time in the Corps. He was a civilian contractor, patching up gear on base. "You're tougher than half the guys here," he'd tease, and I'd roll my eyes. But deep down, it felt good to have someone see the woman behind the uniform. Mason came along soon after, our miracle amid the chaos of deployments. But as his legs weakened over time, diagnosed early as a progressive neuromuscular disorder, the cracks started showing. Victor pulled away slowly, like sand slipping through fingers. "It's too much, Harper," he'd say during our quiet fights in the kitchen, while Mason played in the next room. "The bills, the appointments. I can't keep pretending I'm cut out for this." Pretending. That word stung worst, because I'd given everything. My body scarred from training exercises, my mind wired for survival, to hold us together. He left when Mason was 12, packing a bag one rainy afternoon and muttering about needing space. Space from what? From us? The betrayal settled in like fog, thick and unrelenting, leaving me to rebuild alone. I threw myself into motherhood and the Corps, rising to combat instructor because it let me channel the rage into something useful. Teaching recruits hand-to-hand, survival tactics, the mental steel it takes to face the unknown. It kept me sane. Mason became my anchor, cheering me on from the sidelines during my rare home visits. "You're a superhero, Mom," he'd say, wheeling over for a hug. Our bond was ironclad, forged in hospital waits and late-night talks about dreams he'd chased despite his body. He wanted to DJ one day, mix beats that made people feel alive. That's why the club mattered, a step toward normalcy, toward proving the world wasn't all barriers. But now, back in the present, as dawn filtered through the blinds, a knock pulled me from the memories. It was Detective Lila Grant, a no-nonsense woman in her 40s with a notepad and a sympathetic nod. She'd shown up after the ambulance report flagged it as an assault. "Mrs. Ellis," she said softly, pulling up a chair. "Walk me through what happened. Every detail." I recounted it all, the thump of the bass, Blake's sudden rage, the way the crowd parted like they were used to this. Lila jotted notes, her brow furrowing. "The club says your son was disruptive, bumped into staff. Security footage shows. Well, it's grainy, but they claim self-defense." Self-defense? Against an 18-year-old in a wheelchair? My blood ran cold. "That's a lie," I whispered, voice steady despite the storm inside. "He was just there, excited, harmless." She sighed, glancing at Mason's chart. "I believe you. But poll says poll. Local investors, off-duty cops who moonlight there. They'll spin this. We need witnesses, solid ones." Witnesses. The word hung heavy. In my mind's eye, I saw those faces in the club, blurry now, but frozen in inaction. A girl in a red dress who'd gasped, a guy filming on his phone, the bartender who'd poured drinks without looking up. Had fear kept them quiet? Or something worse, like loyalty to the place that paid their tabs? Lila promised to pull the full footage, but her tone carried caution. "Don't go confronting anyone yet. Let us handle the initial push." I nodded, but inside, helplessness clawed at me. This was the truth being hidden, buried under layers of convenience. The club's cover-up was already in motion. I could feel it in the way the manager had hovered at the scene, offering a comp voucher like that fixed broken bones. By midday, Mason woke groggy, his face pale against the pillows. "Mom? What happened?" I forced a smile, brushing his hair back. "You took a spill, buddy. But you're tough. Doctor says you'll be up and moving soon." He searched my eyes, sensing the lie in my calm. "That guy, he was mad. Like, really mad. Did I do something wrong?" "No, sweetheart. Nothing wrong." I sat beside him, holding his hand as he drifted off again. The weight of it all pressed down. Our little family against a machine that didn't care. Victor called later that afternoon, his voice tinny over the line. "Heard about Mason. You okay?" "Okay." The question ignited old wounds. He'd moved on, remarried to some accountant named Brooke, living easy in a suburb 2 hours away. "We're managing," I said flatly. "He needs surgery." Again, there was a pause, the kind that screamed regret he wouldn't voice. "Send me the bills. I can help with that." Help. After years of absence, it felt like another betrayal, a bandage on a gaping wound. "We don't need your money, Victor. We need, forget it." I hung up before the tears came, staring at the wall. Family pressures like this, his half-hearted offers, the ghost of what we lost, only amplified the isolation. As evening fell, a new face entered. Quentin, a lawyer I'd connected with through a Marine buddy. Sharp-suited, with a firm handshake and eyes that missed nothing. "Harper, right?" Served together indirectly, I handled some JAG cases back in the day. We met in the hospital cafeteria, steam rising from bad coffee. He reviewed the police report I'd forwarded, shaking his head. "This screams negligence, maybe assault with priors. But the club's stonewalling. No full witness list yet." I leaned in, voice low. "What do I do? Mason's hurting, and they're acting like it didn't happen." Quentin tapped his pen, thoughtful. "Build your case quietly. Get statements, medical records. But for now, keep it under wraps. Push too hard early, and they lawyer up harder, bury you in motions. Keep quiet." The advice echoed my training. Observe, assess, strike when ready. But waiting felt like surrender, like letting the truth hide deeper. As I returned to Mason's room, the helplessness peaked. He'd asked for his sketch pad, doodling club lights from memory, but his hand shook too much. "We'll get through this," I whispered, more to myself. The cover-up was thickening, Blake's aggression painted as protocol, our pain as collateral. How long could I stay silent before the fury broke free? Quentin's words lingered as night deepened. "Patience wins wars, Harper. Yours is just starting." The hospital lights buzzed overhead like angry hornets as I paced the hallway outside Mason's room, Quentin's advice echoing in my ears. Patience. It was the one thing I'd mastered in the Corps, waiting out the enemy, timing the move that turned the tide. But this felt different, personal in a way that clawed at my insides. Mason's pain meds had kicked in, letting him rest, but the monitor's steady rhythm couldn't drown out the questions piling up. Why was the club so quick to deflect? And why did Victor's call feel like more than just guilt money? I needed air, so I stepped out to the parking lot, the cool night wrapping around me like an old blanket. My phone lit up almost immediately. A text from Brooke, Victor's new wife. "Victor told me about Mason. We're thinking of you both. Let us know if you need anything." Thinking of us. The words twisted like a bad joke. Brooke had been the wedge, the fresh start Victor chased when things got hard. She'd never met Mason, not really, just polite nods at a distance during the divorce papers. But her message carried an undercurrent, something off. Before I could respond, my sister, Eliza, called. She'd driven in from the next town over, her voice crackling with worry. "Harper, what the hell happened? I just saw a vague post online about some club fight. Is Mason okay?" Eliza was the only family I had left after Mom passed. Practical, no nonsense. The one who'd helped me through the custody battles. I filled her in, voice cracking as I described the stairs, the fall. "He's stable, but it's bad, Liz. Fractures on top of everything else." She swore under her breath. "That bouncer sounds like a monster. You pressing charges?" I glanced back at the hospital doors. "Working on it. Detectives involved, and this lawyer Quentin seems solid." There was a pause, then Eliza's tone shifted, hesitant. "Listen, about Victor. He called me yesterday, before all this. Said he was worried about you taking Mason out places like that. Something about the club, Pulse. He knows the owners, from some old work connections." My stomach dropped. Knows the owners? Victor had never mentioned that. During our marriage, he'd done logistics for local businesses, hauling supplies. But clubs? "What do you mean, knows them?" Eliza sighed. "He didn't say much, just that they handle their own problems and to steer clear." I thought it was him being his usual overprotective self. But now, "Harper, did he ever tell you?" No, he hadn't. The silence on the line stretched, heavy with unspoken history. Victor's betrayal during the divorce had been slow, late nights at work, excuses piling up until he admitted the affair with Brooke. But this? Hiding knowledge about a place that could hurt our son? It felt like fresh salt in an old wound, turning grief into something sharper, colder. "Thanks for the heads up, Liz. I'll handle it." We hung up, and I stared at the screen, thumb hovering over Victor's number. Family pressure like this, secrets buried under years of distance. It eroded what little trust remained. Back inside, Mason's condition had taken a turn. The night nurse, a kind-faced woman named Kendra, pulled me aside. His fever spiked. "We're running tests. Could be infection from the cuts, or stress on his system." Stress. As if his body hadn't endured enough. I sat by his bed again, watching sweat bead on his forehead, his breath shallow. "Fight it, kid," I whispered, wiping his face with a cool cloth. In the quiet, memories flooded. Victor pushing Mason's chair during family outings, laughing until the day he stopped. "He's slowing us down." He'd complain once, out of earshot. I'd defended Mason then, but now? This incident peeled back layers, showing how Victor's absence wasn't just emotional neglect. It was complicit. By morning, the fever broke, but the damage lingered. Mason woke disoriented, asking for water. I helped him sip, our hands linking. "Mom, I dreamed about Dad. He was there, at the club. Said it was my fault." My heart ached. Victor had visited once a month, token gestures that left Mason hoping, only to be let down. Your dad's just complicated. This isn't on you. But as I said it, doubt crept in. What if Victor's warnings to Eliza were more than concern? What if he'd known the risks and said nothing to me? Quentin texted updates. Footage request approved, but the club was delaying. Digging into Blake's background, he added. Might have priors. It gave me a thread to hold, but the home front unraveled further when Victor showed up unannounced that afternoon. He strode into the room like he owned it, Brooke trailing behind with a bouquet of wilting flowers. Harper, he said, avoiding my eyes. We came as soon as we could. Brooke set the flowers down awkwardly. He's such a sweet kid. We're praying for him. Praying. From the woman who'd helped dismantle our family. Mason perked up a bit, managing a weak smile. Hey, Dad. Victor ruffled his hair, the gesture forced. Tough guy, huh? You'll bounce back. We stepped into the hall for privacy, the tension thick as fog. What the hell, Victor? I hissed, keeping my voice low. Eliza told me you know the club. Why didn't you warn me? He shifted, glancing at Brooke, who busied herself with her phone. It's not like that. I did some deliveries there years ago. Heard stories. Rough crowd, but nothing specific. I didn't want to scare you off a night out. Stories. The word ignited fury, quiet but burning. Rough crowd. They threw our son downstairs. If you'd said something, anything, we might have gone elsewhere. Victor's face hardened, that old defensiveness surfacing. You think I wanted this? I've been trying to help, offering money. But you're always so damn independent, Harper. Pushing him away, after he'd walked out? The betrayal hit like a gut punch, him knowing the dangers, staying silent to avoid involvement, then acting the hero now. Brooke interjected softly, We're here now. Let's focus on Mason. But her eyes darted, guilty. Family conflict like this, cold silences, half-truths, it deepened the isolation, making the club's lies feel like part of a bigger web. As they left, promising to check in, I returned to Mason, who looked smaller in the bed. Dad seemed worried, he said hopefully. I nodded, swallowing the truth. Yeah, he is. But inside, grief twisted with resolve. Victor's secrets weren't just about the past. They were shielding something current, maybe ties that kept him quiet. The emotional silence between us had always been our curse, but now it fueled my inner strength. I wouldn't let it bury Mason's justice. That evening, as rain pattered against the window, Quentin called with a lead, a witness from the club, reluctant but willing to talk. But before I could process it, Victor texted again, Stay out of it, Harper. For Mason's sake. The warning chilled me. What was he hiding? And how deep did this family betrayal run? The confrontation was coming. I could feel it brewing, ready to shatter the fragile peace. Victor's text burned in my pocket like a live wire as I sat in the dim glow of Mason's hospital room, the rain outside turning into a steady drum against the glass. Stay out of it, Harper. For Mason's sake. What did he mean by that? Was it concern, or a veiled threat to keep me from digging? The family betrayal had sliced deeper than I expected. His silence about the club, the way he'd shown up with Brooke like a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. It left me hollow, but that hollowness was shifting, hardening into something useful. Despair wouldn't fix this. Strategy would. Mason slept fitfully, his face still flushed from the fever's remnants, and I slipped out to the nurse's station for a quiet corner. Quentin had mentioned that witness, so I called him right there, voice low. Tell me more about this person from the club. We can't waste time. Quentin's response came quick, efficient. She's a bartender, name's Fiona. Saw the whole thing. But she's scared. Says the manager threatened her job if she talks. I'll set up a meet tomorrow, neutral spot. Bring notes, not accusations. I hung up, my mind already mapping it out like a training op. In the core, you'd never charge blind. You'd recon the terrain, identify weak points, build your assault from the shadows. That's what I'd do here, quietly, methodically. No rash moves that could tip them off. First, evidence. I pulled out my laptop, the one I'd carried through deployments, and started compiling what I had. Hospital reports, the initial police statement, even a blurry photo from my phone of the stairwell taken before the paramedics arrived. Every detail mattered. The angle of the fall, the lack of railings, Blake's build against Mason's fragility. As the night wore on, I texted Eliza for support. Can you watch Mason tomorrow? Need to handle some things. Her reply was immediate. On it. Whatever you need, sis. Victor's full of crap. Don't let him rattle you. Her words steadied me. Family pressure could break you if you let it. But leaning on the ones who stayed? That rebuilt strength. By dawn, I'd outlined a plan. Meet Fiona, cross-reference her story with footage if Quentin could pry it loose, then loop in Detective Lila for official weight. No direct confrontation with the club yet. Let them think we were just grieving parents, not a Marine gearing up for war. Morning brought a small mercy. Mason's tests came back clean, no infection, just the grind of healing. He managed some breakfast, oatmeal he poked at with a spoon. When can we go home, Mom? He asked, eyes hopeful but tired. I sat on the bed's edge, careful not to jostle him. Soon, buddy. A few more days. Doctors want to make sure you're solid. He nodded, then added softly, I don't want to go back to that place. Ever. The vulnerability in his voice fueled me. This wasn't about revenge in the flashy sense, no guns or brawls. It was about dignity, about ensuring no one else got hurt because of their negligence. Emotional justice, the kind that lingered, changing lives without a single punch thrown. Eliza arrived mid-morning, bags under her eyes from the drive, but her smile real. She hugged me tight in the hall. He looks better already. Go do what you gotta do. I'll hold the fort. I squeezed her hand, grateful. With Mason settled, I headed to the coffee shop Quentin had picked, a quiet spot downtown, away from prying eyes. Fiona was already there when I arrived, mid-30s, with tired lines around her mouth and a fidgety habit of twisting her napkin. Quentin sat across, introducing me smoothly. This is Harper, Mason's mom. Fiona glanced up, her voice barely above a whisper. I saw it. That bouncer, Blake, he's always rough, but with your kid? It was wrong. The kid didn't even touch him. Blake just lost it. I leaned in, keeping my tone even, like debriefing a recruit. What exactly did you see? And why the delay in coming forward? She swallowed, eyes darting. Manager pulled me aside right after. Said if I breathed a word, I'd be out on my ass. Pulse isn't just a club, it's connected. Local bigwigs, even some cops drink there for free. Blake's their enforcer. Connected. The word confirmed my suspicions, tying back to Victor's vague warnings. I jotted notes, probing gently. Did anyone else react? Film it. Help. Fiona shook her head. A few gasped, one guy yelled, but security shut it down fast. They confiscated phones, claimed it was a private matter. Your son, he was screaming at the bottom, and no one went down till you did. Her account matched mine, adding the club's immediate clampdown, erasing videos, coaching statements. It built the case, layer by layer. Quentin nodded approvingly as Fiona left, promising to sign a formal statement. This is gold, Harper. Paints negligence on top of assault. But we need more, medical experts. Maybe push for the full security logs. I agreed, my mind racing ahead. Back at the hospital, Eliza updated me. Mason had eaten more, even joked about sketching new club designs, safer ones. It warmed me, seeing his spark flicker back. But Victor called again that evening, his tone edged. Heard you're talking to people. Drop it, Harper. You'll make it worse. Worse how? The question hung unspoken as I ended the call. His protectiveness fell off, like he was guarding more than just our son, maybe his own ties to those connections. The despair from the betrayal at home was fading, replaced by quiet determination. I'd use my training, observe patterns, exploit gaps. Next step, dig into Blake's history, see if his aggression hid deeper rot. And Victor? If he was entangled, I'd uncover that too, without a word of warning. As night fell, I stood by Mason's window, city lights blurring in the rain. The plan was solidifying, a blueprint for justice born from pain. But one cold thought crystallized. If pushing forward meant facing down the people closest to me, I'd do it. No hesitation. What if the real enemy wasn't just the bouncer, but the secrets we kept from each other? The city lights streaked past as I drove back from the coffee shop meet with Fiona, her words looping in my head like a warning siren. The club's connections ran deeper than I'd imagined. Cops on the take, investors pulling strings. It explained the delays, the stonewalling. But it also lit a fire under my plan. No more waiting in shadows. It was time to peel back the layers of their deception, starting with Blake's story. Quentin had promised background checks, so when my phone buzzed with his email later that afternoon, I pulled over in a quiet lot, heart thudding. The file attached was sparse, but damning. Blake Harlan, 35, with a rap sheet for assault dating back 5 years, bar fights, a complaint from a delivery driver he'd roughed up. All charges dropped or plea bargained, whispers of club money smoothing the edges. He's their muscle for a reason, Quentin noted in the message. No convictions, but patterns. Use this wisely. Patterns. The kind that screamed repeat offender, not a one-off temper tantrum. Mason's fall wasn't random. It was Blake's way of world, protected by a system that lied to cover its own. I forwarded it to Detective Lila right away, adding a note. This changes things. Push for an interview. Her reply came swift. On it. But heads up, the club's lawyering up already. Expect pushback. Pushback. The words settled heavy as I resumed driving to the hospital, the weight of impending conflict pressing on my chest. Grief for Mason's stolen night out mingled with a sharper edge now. Anger at the web of deceit spinning around us. How many other accidents had they buried? Eliza was still with Mason when I arrived, helping him with physical therapy exercises from his bed, gentle stretches to ease the stiffness. She caught my eye, concern etched deep. You look like you haven't slept in days. What's the latest? I sank into the chair, rubbing my temples. Got dirt on the bouncer. Assault history, all swept under. The club's trying to paint Mason as the instigator. Eliza's jaw tightened, her hand pausing on Mason's arm. Bastards. They throw my nephew downstairs and lie about it. You fight this, Harper. We're in it together. Her support was a lifeline, the kind of family loyalty Victor had long abandoned. Mason chimed in, voice strained but curious. What kind of lies? I hesitated, not wanting to burden him, but honesty won out. They're saying you caused trouble, bumped into someone. But we know that's not true. His eyes welled up, not with tears, but frustration. I didn't. I swear. Eliza squeezed his shoulder. We believe you, kid. Always. In that moment, seeing her rally like this, driving hours, staying through the night, it highlighted the true colors emerging. Eliza, solid as ever. Victor, fading into guilt-shadowed silence. But the club's whitewash hit harder that evening when Quentin called with fresh developments. Pulled more footage, partial, but it shows Blake grabbing the chair first. No provocation. I confronted their manager informally. He denied everything, claimed misunderstanding. Then their lawyers emailed. Cease all contact or face defamation suits. Defamation? For seeking truth? The threat landed like a slap, climbing the tension I'd been holding at bay. They're scared, Quentin added. Means we're onto something. But play it cool. No social media blasts yet. I paced the room after hanging up, the sterile walls closing in. The lies were piling. Blake's clean facade, the manager's spin, now legal muscle to intimidate. It felt like the club was a beast, lashing out to protect its underbelly. Grief twisted tighter. For the family we'd lost cohesion. For Mason's dreams deferred by their negligence. I sat by his bed, watching him doze, and whispered, this ends with the truth, not their version. Inner strength surged, quiet but unyielding, the Marine in me plotting contingencies. More witnesses, public records on the club's permits, maybe even reaching out to those dropped charges victims. Victor texted again as night deepened. His words clipped. Heard from a friend at Pulse. They're offering settlement. Take it, Harper, before it drags on. Settlement. The offer reeked of hush money, another layer of deception to buy silence. I didn't reply, but it gnawed, his friend confirming his ties, his push for peace hiding self-preservation. Was he shielding guilt from his past dealings, or something current? The family fractures showed stark now. Eliza urging me forward, Victor pulling back, his absence a silent betrayal that amplified the club's noise. By midnight, Lila texted an update. Blake interviewed, stone-faced, claiming Mason resisted removal. No charges yet. Insufficient evidence, they said. Bull. The whitewash was in full swing, tension coiling like a spring. I lay awake in the pull-out chair, mind racing through the plan's next phase. Subpoena the full tapes. Line up Fiona's affidavit. But as sleep evaded, one thought chilled me. What if their lawyer's threat was just the opening salvo? What if they came after us personally, dragging up my core history or Mason's condition to discredit? The lies were cracking, but the fallout loomed larger, threatening to bury us before we could expose them. The hospital's fluorescent hum had become my constant companion by the fourth day, a white noise backdrop to the endless cycle of check-ins and setbacks. Mason's fractures were mending slowly, but the pain meds left him foggy, his usual spark dimmed to flickers. I hovered, managing his care like a mission briefing, but the club's legal threats lingered like smoke. Their lawyer's email demanding I refrain from defamatory statements or face countersuit. It was intimidation dressed as procedure, designed to wear me down. Grief for what Mason had lost gnawed deeper, mingling with the family rifts Victor's meddling had widened. Eliza stayed close, rotating shifts with me, but even her steady presence couldn't shake the isolation creeping in. Quentin's daily updates kept the momentum, but frustration built when the full footage remained locked. Judge is dragging on the subpoena, he said during our call that morning, his voice strained. Club's pulling favors. I gripped the phone tighter, staring out the window at the gray skyline. We can't let them bury it. Fiona's statement is solid. Push harder. He promised to, but doubt flickered. Emotional justice felt distant, like a horizon mirage, while the lies piled on. Mason woke around noon, managing a few bites of Jell-O before wincing. Mom, my leg feels weird. Like pins. I called the nurse, who adjusted his but the moment stuck. His vulnerability a constant reminder of why I couldn't quit. Eliza arrived with lunch, her bag stuffed with takeout sandwiches. Eat something real, she urged, handing me one. You look like hell. We sat by Mason's bed, the three of us in a fragile bubble, talking light. About his sketches, her job drama, to push back the shadows. But the afternoon shattered that calm when a new face appeared at the door. A tall man in his 60s, silver hair cropped short, wearing a crisp button-down that screamed retired authority. Mrs. Ellis? Harper? I'm Judge Oliver Reyes. He introduced himself, extending a hand with a grip like weathered steel. Mason's eyes widened curiously, and Eliza stood, puzzled. I shook his hand, mind racing. Judge? How did you? He smiled faintly, pulling up a visitor chair without waiting. A mutual friend, your old core contact, Ian from Legal Aid. He reached out after hearing about the case. Said you were one of the best instructors he'd known. I served too, back in Vietnam-era, JAG branch. When I saw the details, I couldn't stay out. Unexpected didn't cover it. Oliver's presence shifted the air, like reinforcements arriving on a stalled op. He leaned forward, voice low and measured. Quentin's subpoena is before my old colleague, but the system's clogged with influence peddlers. Pulse has donated to campaigns. Nothing illegal, but it buys delays. I nodded, the confirmation validating my gut. So what now? We wait. Oliver's eyes met mine, appraising. No. I can advise informally, review docs, suggest angles. Your quiet resolve. It reminds me of cases where determination outlasted money. This isn't just assault. It's a failure of duty to the vulnerable. His words hit home, stirring the inner strength I'd buried under fatigue. Emotional justice wasn't abstract anymore. It had a face, one sensing my pain without pity. I pulled out the folder, Fiona's notes, medical summaries, Blake's priors, and he scanned them intently, murmuring approvals. Strong foundation. Highlight the ADA violations. No proper access. That stairwell a hazard. And tie in Blake's pattern. I've seen his type before. Bullies shielded by connections. Eliza listened rapt, her skepticism melting into hope. You're really stepping in? Just like that. Oliver chuckled dryly. Retirement gets boring. Plus, it's personal. Had a grandson with mobility issues. Lost him young to neglect in a safe facility. Cases like yours, they matter. The vulnerability in his admission cracked something in me. Grief for Mason echoing his loss. We spent the next hour strategizing. He suggested looping in a civil rights group for added pressure, framing the suit to expose the club's broader negligence. Quietly at first, he advised, echoing my plan. Build the tide, let it wash over them. Mason perked up during a break, asking Oliver about his judge stories. The man obliged with a tame tale of a courtroom standoff, drawing a genuine laugh from my boy, the first in days. It lightened the room, Eliza snapping a photo for later. But as Oliver prepared to leave, promising to nudge his contacts, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, face tightening. One more thing, pulled some strings on Blake. Turns out, he wasn't always security. Ex-cop, bounced for excessive force complaints. But here's the surprise. He worked private detail for Victor's old logistics firm 5 years back. Small world. The revelation landed like ice water. Blake and Victor, linked through some shadowy job? It explained Victor's warnings, his push for settlement. The tide was shifting, emotional justice gaining momentum with this ally, but now the web tangled closer to home. Oliver clasped my shoulder. Watch your back, Harper. Secrets like that, they unravel slow. He left, the door clicking shut, leaving silence thick with implications. Eliza broke it first. Victor's involved? That son of a... I cut her off gently. Not yet. But Oliver's right. We play smart. Mason dozed again, oblivious, but inside, resolve hardened. This unexpected help validated the path. Dignity over destruction, truth over threats. Yet Blake's past connection to Victor? It hinted at deeper betrayals, ones that could pull my ex into the light, or drag us all down. As evening settled, the hospital quieted, but my mind raced. The ally had appeared, but what if the revelations he unearthed forced a reckoning I wasn't ready for? Oliver's parting words hung over me like a storm cloud as I watched him disappear down the hospital corridor, his footsteps fading into the murmur of nurses and carts. Blake tied to Victor's old firm? It couldn't be coincidence. The universe didn't deal in those. I sank back into the chair beside Mason's bed, the room feeling smaller, the air thicker with unspoken questions. Mason shifted in his sleep, mumbling about lights and music, and I brushed a hand over his forehead, grounding myself in the warmth of his skin. Emotional justice had gained an ally in Oliver, but now the web snagged closer to the people I'd once called family. Victor's warnings, his sudden offers of help, it all reeked of motive hidden in plain sight. Eliza lingered after Oliver left, her eyes sharp as she unpacked more snacks from her bag. That judge seems legit. But Victor and the bouncer? Spill, what's the connection? I recounted the detail quietly, keeping my voice low so Mason wouldn't stir. Her face darkened, fists clenching on the bedsheet. That bastard. All these years, and he's still playing games. You think he's protecting himself? The question mirrored my own doubts, grief for the man I'd married twisting into suspicion. Victor had left us broken, but this felt like active sabotage, nudging me towards settlement to keep his past buried. We talked strategy for a bit, Eliza suggesting I record any more calls from him, but fatigue pulled at us both. She headed home for a rest, promising to return at dawn. Alone with Mason, I pulled out my phone, scrolling through old photos. Us three at a park, Victor pushing the chair with a real smile, before the weight of illness wore him down. Betrayal layered like this, from the club to my doorstep, eroded the silence I'd built around our pain. Inner strength kept me upright, but trust? That was fracturing fast. Sleep came in fits, broken by Mason's groans and my racing thoughts. By early morning, Quentin called with an urgent edge. "Harper, we got a break. The subpoena's approved. Footage incoming today." But, heads up on Victor. I ran a quick check on his logistics history. He didn't just deliver to Pulse. He handled their security contracts briefly, around the time Blake was hired. Small payments, off books maybe. My breath caught, the pieces slamming together. Victor hadn't just known the club, he'd helped build their shield. "Why tell me now?" Quentin paused. "Because someone tipped the club's lawyers about our witness meet with Fiona. They're prepping to discredit her. Say she's unreliable, grudge against management." Tip them. The implication hit like a sucker punch. Who in my circle knew about Fiona? Only Quentin, Oliver, Eliza, and Victor from our hall confrontation days ago. Grief surged, hot and bitter, for the father Mason still longed for. I thanked Quentin and hung up, staring at the wall as dawn light crept in. Family pressure had always been Victor's specialty, subtle pushes during our marriage, now evolving into outright interference. But to sabotage his own son's justice? It shattered something deep, turning quiet regret into raw fury I swallowed down. Mason woke hungry, so I helped him with breakfast, chatting about nothing heavy, his favorite bands, plans for when he got home. "Maybe we can watch that new action flick," he suggested, eyes lighting up. I smiled, masking the turmoil. "Deal. Popcorn and all." But as he napped again, I stepped out to the balcony for air, dialing Victor before I could second guess. He picked up on the second ring, voice groggy. "Harper? Early for you." "Cut the crap, Victor. Your history with Pulse, security gigs, Blake on payroll. And now someone's leaking our moves to their lawyers. Ring any bells?" Silence stretched, then a sigh. "It's not what you think. I ended that work years ago, after you and I split. But yeah, I know people there. That's why I want you to settle. They play dirty, Harper. Dig too deep, and they'll drag Mason's condition into it. Say he was a liability." Liability. The word ignited the storm inside. "You're protecting them? After what they did to our boy?" "No, protecting us. I talked to the manager once, off record, to smooth things over. Told them we'd take a payout if they dropped any counters. Talk to them." The confession landed like betrayal's final blow. Victor, not just silent, but actively colluding, trading our pain for his peace. Trust shattered in that moment. Grief flooding in waves for the family we'd never reclaim. "You son of a, how could you? Mason's in there because of them, and you're covering?" His voice rose, defensive. I was trying to fix it quietly. "You always go in guns blazing, like in the Corps. This isn't a battlefield." But it was, to me. Inner strength surged, cold and clear, turning despair to resolve. "Stay away from us, Victor. And tell your friends, we're coming." I hung up, hands shaking, the city sprawl below blurring through tears I didn't let fall. The first twist hit hard. Hidden motives from the one person who'd sworn to stand by us. Brooke's text suddenly made sense. Her support, a front for Victor's maneuvering. The stakes deepened, the fight no longer just against the club, but the ghosts of our broken home aiding them. Quentin arrived soon after with the footage drive, Oliver tagging along for review. We huddled in a private lounge, the grainy video playing out. Blake's grab, Mason's helpless tumble, the crowd's inaction. "Ironclad," Oliver murmured. "But with Victor's involvement, it complicates custody angles if they push back." Complicates. The word underscored the betrayal's reach. Family secrets now weapons in their arsenal. As they left, Mason called from his room, voice weak. "Mom? Everything okay?" I returned, forcing normalcy. "Yeah, kid. just planning our next move. But inside, the shatter echoed, resolve hardening like steel and fire. Quiet revenge meant exposing it all, dignity intact, letting karma unravel the lies. Yet as the day wore on, one haunting question lingered. If Victor could turn like this, who else in my circle was hiding motives that could destroy us? The haunting question about hidden motives kept me up that night, staring at the ceiling tiles in Mason's room as the hospital settled into its graveyard shift hush. Victor's betrayal had cracked open a chasm, turning what I thought was old history into a live threat, but I couldn't let it paralyze me. With the footage secured, Quentin pushed for a fast-track hearing, preliminary injunction against the club's interference, plus a motion to compel full witness disclosures. Oliver pulled more strings, getting us slotted before a sympathetic bench in just 2 weeks. Time blurred in the lead-up. Physical therapy for Mason ramped up, his progress inching forward with braces and cautious steps assisted by rails. Eliza and I tag-teamed his care, her quiet presence a buffer against the emotional storm brewing inside. The day of the hearing dawned crisp and unforgiving, the courthouse steps looming like a gauntlet. Mason stayed home with a nurse, too risky to expose him to the stress, but I carried his sketch of the club in my pocket, a talisman of why we fought. Quentin met me at the entrance, briefcase in hand, his usual calm edged with focus. We've got the footage, affidavits from Fiona, and Oliver's informal input on ADA angles. Their side will hammer the accident narrative, paint you as aggressive. Aggressive. The irony burned, but I nodded, straightening my shoulders like suiting up for drill. Inner strength wasn't loud. It was this, the steady march forward despite the grief weighing my steps. Inside, the courtroom smelled of polished wood and stale coffee, a far cry from the chaos of Pulse, but no less battleground. Judge Clara Voss presided, mid-50s with sharp eyes and a no-frills robe, her reputation for fairness a small Mercy Oliver had vouched for. The club's lawyers, 2 slick suits from a big firm, huddled at their table, exuding confidence. Victor wasn't there, but his shadow loomed. Quentin had warned me their prep included digging into my divorce, trying to frame me as unstable. Proceedings kicked off with opening statements. Quentin rose, voice clear and measured. Your Honor, this isn't about a minor scuffle. It's about deliberate harm to a vulnerable young man, covered by a pattern of negligence and intimidation. He cued the footage on the screen, the grainy clip playing out. Blake's sudden lunge, Mason's chair tipping, the thud of his body on stairs. Gasps rippled from the sparse gallery, mostly reporters and a few advocates Oliver had looped in. I sat rigid, reliving it in silence, grief surging as Mason's cry echoed through the speakers. Their lead attorney, a weasel-faced man named Preston, countered smoothly. A tragic mishap, yes, but provoked by the plaintiff's son obstructing staff during a disturbance. Our client acted in good faith to maintain order. Good faith. The lie twisted like a knife, but I held my tongue, letting Quentin build the rebuttal. He called Fiona first, her hands clasped tight as she took the stand. I served drinks that night. The boy, Mason, wasn't causing trouble. He bumped a table accidentally, and Blake overreacted, threw him like garbage. Manager told me to keep quiet or lose my shift. Cross-examination turned ugly. Preston grilled her on work history, implying grudge. Isn't it true you were written up for insubordination last month? Fiona met his gaze steadily. Doesn't change what I saw. Her poise fueled me, a reminder that truth pierced louder than bluster. Then it was my turn, testimony that felt like stripping bare. Quentin guided me gently. Mrs. Ellis, describe the incident from your perspective. I stood, voice even despite the knot in my throat. Mason just wanted a night out, something normal. He loves music, dreams of mixing tracks despite his condition. We checked accessibility ahead. They assured us it was fine. But Blake didn't see a kid in a chair. He saw an easy target. I reached for him, but it was too late. Watching my son roll down those stairs, it broke something in me. Not just his body, our trust in places that should protect the vulnerable. The words flowed raw, personal, the courtroom's hush amplifying each one. Grief spilled in the details, Mason's cries, the crowd's averted eyes, the manager's voucher like a slap. Preston's cross was brutal, probing my background. As a former Marine combat instructor, don't you have training in conflict? Could your perception be influenced by a combative mindset? The gallery murmured, and heat rose in my chest. Family pressure flashing back to Victor's old jabs about my soldier mode. But I leaned into it, voice steady. Training taught me to assess threats, yes. And the real threat that night was their negligence, not me. Mason's in therapy now because of it. Nights of pain, dreams deferred. This isn't combat. It's justice for a boy who deserves better. Quentin followed with experts, a doctor detailing Mason's aggravated injuries, an accessibility consultant blasting the club's violations, missing ramps, unmarked hazards. The club's side trotted out Blake, hulking in an ill-fitting suit, swearing under oath. Kid got in the way during a rowdy spot. I tried to move him safe. Things went wrong. Lies layered thick, but his eyes shifted, avoiding mine. Their final witness, the manager, spun tales of robust protocols, but cracks showed, hesitant answers on prior complaints. As arguments wrapped, emotional fallout hit in waves. Seeing Blake there, unrepentant, reignited the silence I'd carried since the divorce. The way Victor had minimized Mason's needs now echoed in this defense. Inner strength held me, but tears pricked when Clara adjourned for deliberation. Compelling on both sides, she said neutrally. I'll rule by end of day. Quentin patted my arm. You nailed it, Harper. Your story cut through. We waited in a side room, tension coiling. Eliza texted support from home. Mason's cheering you on. Kick ass. But Victor's silence spoke volumes. No call, no show. The betrayal deepened the isolation, grief for our fractured family amplifying the stakes. Hours ticked by, my mind replaying testimony, the raw narratives of pain that had filled the room, my voice breaking the silence on our suffering. Finally, the bailiff called us back. Clara entered, gavel in hand, her expression unreadable. The gallery leaned forward as she cleared her throat. On the motion to compel evidence and enjoin interference. The words hung, the room holding its breath. What verdict would tip the scales, and at what cost to the secrets still unraveling? Clara's gavel cracked like a starting gun as she delivered the ruling, her voice steady amid the courtroom's tension. The motion to compel full evidence disclosure is granted. The defendant's attempts at interference, including witness intimidation, are noted and will factor into sanctions. Preliminary injunction against further suppression holds. Relief washed over me in a quiet wave, not triumphant cheers, but a deep exhale after holding breath too long. Quentin's hand squeezed my arm briefly, a nod to Oliver in the back row sealing the win. The club's lawyers scowled, gathering papers with sharp gestures, but their bluster had cracked. Our side had drawn first blood without a single raised voice. We filed out into the afternoon sun, the weight lifting just enough to breathe. Quentin walked me to my car, outlining next steps. This forces their hand. Full tapes, internal logs. We'll file the civil suit proper by week's end, aiming for punitive damages on the negligence. I nodded, the plan's momentum carrying me. And the criminal angle? Blake. He smiled faintly. Lila's building that parallel. Assault charges likely now, with the footage. No fanfare, just the steady grind of justice unfolding. Dignity in every calculated move. Grief for Mason's pain still lingered, but this felt like the first step toward emotional cleansing, reclaiming our story from their lies. Back at the hospital, Mason's face lit up when I recounted the hearing, propped up in bed with his braces nearby. You did it, Mom. Like one of your training stories. I sat close, detailing the testimony without the grit, focusing on Fiona's bravery and Clara's fairness. Eliza arrived soon after, arms full of celebratory balloons she'd snagged from a shop. To the fighters, she toasted with cafeteria juice, her grin masking the exhaustion we'd all shared. Family pressure from Victor's betrayal still echoed, but moments like this, raw, real support, mended the fractures, bit by bit. The quiet revenge took shape that evening as I dove into the next phase, marine discipline guiding my hand. No storming the club gates. Instead, I compiled a press packet with Quentin's help, redacted footage clips, Fiona's anonymized statement, ADA violation breakdowns. Oliver suggested targeting local outlets first, the ones covering community safety. Public opinion's your silent weapon, he said over a quick call. Let the light expose what shadows hide. I emailed it out before bed, the send button a small act of power. Karma wasn't flashy. It was this, truth circulating like ripples, eroding their foundation without a fight. Sleep came easier that night, dreams less haunted by stairs and falls. By morning, responses trickled in, a reporter from the city paper requesting an interview, a disability advocacy group offering to amplify. I met the journalist, Natalie, in a park near the hospital, neutral ground, away from prying eyes. She was mid-30s, notepad ready, her questions probing but kind. This isn't just about one incident, is it? Walk me through why you're pursuing this. I spoke from the heart, voice even. Mason's my world. He faces barriers every day, but that night, someone made them a weapon. We're not suing for revenge. We're suing for change, so no other family endures this silence. Her article dropped online by afternoon. Club neglect leaves disabled teen injured. Family fights for accountability. It went semi-viral in local circles, shares climbing as comments poured in, stories of similar oversights at Pulse, whispers of other incidents swept away. Public opinion shifted subtly, the club's social media lighting up with questions, tags demanding answers. I monitored from Mason's room, his therapy session interrupted by a nurse mentioning she'd seen the piece. Good for you, she said softly. Emotional justice bloomed in those echoes, a cleansing wave washing away the isolation Victor's motives had deepened. But the revenge stayed quiet, disciplined. When Victor called that night, his tone laced with urgency, I let it ring twice before answering. Harper, this press thing, it's blowing up. The manager reached out. They're open to talks. Talks. Another veil for settlement, but now with scrutiny breathing down their necks. No more games, Victor, I said calmly, the power in restraint. Your involvement ends here. Focus on being a dad from afar, if you can manage that. He stammered, something about protecting Mason, but I ended it gently. No explosion, just boundaries drawn in steel. The betrayal's sting dulled, replaced by legacy building. This fight would shape Mason's future, teach him resilience mirrored in my own. Eliza joined me for dinner, bringing takeout Thai that Mason devoured with real appetite. Saw the article. Proud of you, sis. We laughed over the absurdity of it all, the club scrambling, Blake's name trending in complaints. Mason sketched while we talked, his lines bolder, capturing a safer world of ramps and lights. Inner strength flowed through these hours, grief transforming into purpose. The club's power crumbled not from force, but exposure, secrets leaking like cracks in a dam, public pressure forcing policy reviews, even a city council inquiry hinted at in follow-up stories. As night fell, I reflected by the window, city hum below a reminder of battles won small. Quiet revenge wasn't destruction, it was reclamation, dignity restored, emotional wounds airing out. Mason slept soundly, his breaths even, and for the first time since the incident, hope edged out the hurt. But the journey's scars ran deep, a somber map of what we'd endured to reach this fragile peace. What if the tide we'd turned revealed even more buried truths, pulling everyone into the light? The question of buried truths kept surfacing in quiet moments, like ghosts refusing to stay down. as the weeks blurred into a rhythm of depositions and media ripples. Mason's discharge from the hospital came on a mild afternoon, his wheelchair upgraded with reinforcements, therapy sessions now at a local center where he pushed harder each day. Eliza helped set up our home, ramps reinforced, his room rearranged for easier access, and the normalcy of it all felt like a hard-won truce. The press packet had snowballed. More stories emerged of Pulse's oversights, a former employee leaking internal memos about cost-cutting on safety. Public opinion turned the tide, with petitions circling online and city officials scheduling inspections. Quiet revenge hummed along, dismantling their empire brick by invisible brick, without me ever raising my voice in anger. Quentin's office became our war room, stacked with files and coffee mugs, Oliver dropping by for strategy tweaks. The civil suits gaining traction, Quentin updated one morning, spreading documents across his desk. Their insurance is balking at the exposure, offering a 7-figure settlement now, plus policy changes. 7 figures. The number stunned, but it wasn't about the money. It was validation, emotional justice wrapping around the grief like a bomb. I leaned back in the chair, the weight of Mason's medical future lifting slightly. And Blake? Criminal side. Lila had joined via video, her face serious on the screen. Indicted for assault. His priors caught up. Turns out, those dropped charges? Victims are coming forward, emboldened by your story. The consequences rippled outward, karma's quiet hand turning the wheel. Blake's arrest made headlines. His mugshot splashed across local news, the club's rep tanking as patrons pulled back. But the deeper twist unraveled that same week, during a routine deposition at the firm's conference room. Polished table, water pitchers sweating in the AC. The club's manager, a wiry guy named Dominic, sat across, his lawyer Preston fidgeting beside him. Quentin led the questions, probing the night's protocols. Explained the decision to hire Blake, given his history. Dominic shifted, sweat beading. He came recommended. Solid for crowd control. Recommended. The word hung, and I caught Oliver's eye across the table. He'd prepped me for this. Quentin slid over a printout, Victor's old logistics invoice highlighted. Recommended by Victor Ellis? Your security contractor from 5 years back. Dominic's face paled, eyes darting to Preston, who objected half-heartedly. But the floodgates cracked. Under pressure, Dominic admitted Victor hadn't just supplied gear. He'd vouched for Blake personally, smoothing his hire after a minor incident at another venue. Assault on a patron Dominic called troublesome. The revelation hit like a delayed fuse, exploding the last illusions. Victor, my ex, Mason's father, hadn't just known the club. He'd enabled the very monster who hurt our son, trading favors for steady contracts during our rocky marriage. Grief crashed in, raw and unfiltered, for the man I'd once defended, now exposed as complicit in the neglect. Why? I asked quietly when Quentin paused, my voice the only sound in the stunned room. Dominic swallowed. He needed the work. Said his family was struggling. Divorce, kids' health stuff. We figured he owed us discretion. Discretion. Victor's hidden motives weren't self-preservation alone. They were tangled in our pain, using Mason's condition as leverage for his deals. The betrayers faced their mirror, Blake in cuffs, the club shuddering for violations, and Victor, summoned next for his own depot, crumbling under oath. He arrived disheveled, Brooke absent, his eyes hollow as he took the stand. Harper, I didn't know it'd go this far. Quentin pressed. Contracts, vouches, the tip to their lawyers. Victor's confession spilled. Pressured by old debts to the owners, he'd leaked the Fiona meat to buy time, thinking a quick settlement would shield everyone. I was scared. For Mason, for us. But it backfired. Emotional justice hit home then, not with shouts, but the weight of truth laid bare. Victor broke, tears tracking as he faced me across the table. I failed you both. Seeing what happened, it gutted me. That's why the warnings. I met his gaze, inner strength holding the flood back. You failed by choosing silence over us. But this ends it. Full disclosure, or we add you to the suit. He nodded, shattered, agreeing to testify against the club for leniency. Karma turned powerfully, quietly. His business ties severed, reputation in tatters, forced into counseling and restitution payments direct to Mason's trust. The fallout cleansed like rain after drought. Dominic resigned amid scandal, Pulse facing shutdown orders for code breaches. Blake's trial loomed, his plea bargain including community service at disability centers. Ironic twist of fate. For us, the settlement funded Mason's future, adaptive tech, ongoing therapy, even a home studio for his DJ dreams. Grief transformed fully now, scars fading into strength. Mason noticed the shift during a park outing, wheeling beside me under autumn leaves. "You seem lighter, Mom. Like we won something big." I ruffled his hair. "We did, kid. Not just a case, a fresh start." Victor visited once after, awkward in our living room, Brooke waiting in the car. "Can I see him more? Make it right." Mason, ever forgiving, shrugged. "Maybe, if you show up for real this time." The door stayed open, cracked, dignity allowing healing without erasure. Emotional justice wasn't erasure, it was balance restored, betrayers humbled by their own reflections. As winter edged in, hope bloomed tangible. Mason's first mixtape playing softly in the background, his steps steadier with aids. The fight had reshaped us, legacy etched in resilience. But in the quiet nights, one final reflection lingered. What if justice's true power lay not in the win, but in the hope it sparked for tomorrow? The reflection on justice's true power, that spark of hope for tomorrow, became my anchor in the months that followed, a quiet mantra as life reshaped itself around the scars we'd carried. Winter thawed into spring, Mason's therapy evolving from painful grinds to triumphant milestones. His first unassisted steps across the living room floor, braces clicking like applause, his grin wide enough to light the room. The settlement money sat in a trust, funding not just treatments, but dreams. A custom mixing board arrived one sunny afternoon, sleek and professional, Mason's fingers dancing over the controls almost immediately. "Listen to this beat, Mom," he'd say, layering tracks with a focus that mirrored my old instructor days, turning pain into rhythm, vulnerability into creation. Eliza was there for the big moments, her visits turning routine, cooking dinners, laughing over bad movies, her presence weaving back the family threads Victor's betrayal had frayed. We'd talk late into evenings, post Mason's bedtime, about the what-ifs and the what-nows. "You built something unbreakable," she'd say one night, clinking glasses of herbal tea. "Not just for him, for you too." Her words settled deep, easing the grief that had shadowed us since the club. Inner strength wasn't solitary anymore. It was shared, a legacy passed in these simple, healing rituals. Victor faded to the edges, his visits sporadic but sincere. Picking Mason up for park outings, no grand gestures, just showing up as promised. The divorce's old wounds didn't vanish, but they scarred over, dignity allowing space for tentative repair. One afternoon, as Mason wheeled out to meet him, Victor paused at the door, eyes meeting mine. "I don't deserve this chance, Harper. But thank you for not shutting it down." I nodded, no warmth but no ice. "It's for Mason. Keep earning it." Emotional closure came in waves like that, quiet acknowledgments, no fireworks, just the slow mending of what betrayal had torn. The club's downfall sealed the circle. Pulse shuttered permanently after the council's probe uncovered systemic failures. Unpermitted mods, ignored complaints spanning years. Blake's sentence landed fair, probation, mandatory anger management, and hours at a youth center teaching de-escalation. His hulking frame now humbled in service. The advocacy groups Oliver connected us with turned our story into policy pushes, new accessibility laws rippling out to other venues. I spoke at one event, voice steady on a small stage, sharing not vengeance but the cost of silence. We fought for dignity, not destruction, I said to nods and tears. And in that, we found our healing. Mason stabilized fully by summer, his condition no longer a thief but a teacher. Legs stronger, spirit soaring as he uploaded his first mixes online, gaining a small following of fans who cheered his journey. We'd sit on the porch evenings, sunset painting the sky, him tweaking sounds while I reflected. The Marine in me had trained for battles, but this, watching him thrive, felt like the real victory. Quiet courage had carried us. Through the stairs' echo, Victor's shadows, the courtroom's glare. Legacy wasn't monuments or medals. It was this, resilience etched in a boy's smile, a mother's unbowed back. As the stars emerged one clear night, Mason paused his music, turning to me with that thoughtful gaze. Mom, what if that night never happened? Would we be different? The question hung emotional, high and piercing, stirring the depth of our shared path. What unbreakable bonds might we have missed without the pain that forged them? If this story touched you, drop a comment below with your city or country. It's amazing connecting with folks from all over the world. Give it a like if it hit home, and hit subscribe so we can keep these tales coming your way. Join me next time for another thrilling epic of revenge and redemption. Stay tuned, because the best stories are just beginning. And hey, tell me in the comments, what kind of stories do you crave more of? Deep family betrayals, quiet comebacks, or something else? I'll craft exactly those for you.